From Spiral Studio comes a brand new release as part of their Legacy series of figures. We're looking today at Spiral Studios' Godzilla 1984 figure. This figure is scheduled for a second quarter 2024 release date and is up for pre-order now. You can purchase it directly on Spiral Studios' website or at other various online retailers. Standing at an impressive 20.4 inches tall, over 32 inches long, and over 24 inches wide, this figure is massive and packed with insane amounts of detail. It should also be noted that this figure is limited to only 299 pieces. It's been a while since I did a figure preview, but interestingly the last one I did do was also a figure from Spiral Studio, so I guess as of late they've been making pieces that have been really capturing my attention, and this figure is certainly no exception. Now, Spiral Studio dropped a lot of photos for this figure, and even before I started making this video, I was kind of just looking at these photos on their website because I'm just so impressed by the way that this thing looks. They really captured every single angle, and no matter what photo you look at, as we'll see through the video here, there's so much detail. It looks so accurate. I am curious to know, the 1984 Godzilla aficionados, what you guys think about this sculpt. Leave a comment down below. I'm by no means a Godzilla 1984 expert, but based on what I've seen, this does look extremely screen accurate. So first I want to take a look at this brilliant head sculpt. We have some great photos that are in bright light, as well as very dramatic lighting too, so we get a good sense of this figure in both light and shadow. Based on the photos I could find online, we don't have a lot of explicit front-facing images, so I'm really just going based off of this one image for the time being. But it really looks like Spiral Studio nailed that very furrowed, angry brow that is so prominent on this particular Godzilla design, and the fangs of course are essential to this design as well. But we certainly have a lot of different angled photos of the head sculpt here. Now in terms of analysis, there's not much for me to say because we were looking at a hyper-realistic version of the figure. You can really only go by its screen accuracy, but it does look like they nailed it. In terms of just pure aesthetics, I am sold on this figure. The sculpt is amazing. Now this photo here in particular is just captivating to me. We got that very dramatic lighting and that sort of dust smoke effect that's going on here, and you can really see the way that shadow and light play off of this stunning sculpt. What's interesting to me, based on the description of this figure on Spiral Studios' website directly, is that the figure is going to have a sort of rubbery feel to the texture. So I'm not sure how they replicate that because it is made of PVC. I guess that's meant to replicate what the suit would feel like, so I guess they're going all in terms of how realistic it should be, which is interesting. I don't really think it makes a difference to me. Just in terms of aesthetics, it looks stunning, so that's what I'm going based off of. But now let's take a look at the overall figure itself, in terms of the sculpt and the pose. So looking at this particular image here, one thing to note is that the tail looks particularly long. Based on the sculpt that they chose for this, it seems like it's going to be a bit of a shelf hog, so that's something to consider if you're going to be getting this figure. For someone like myself, unfortunately this would not be feasible for the limited space that I have, unless if I were to pose it without the tail attached. But we have enough angles here to get a sense of exactly how that tail is positioned. So front facing, it does certainly come out to the left of the figure, which is very prominent, and then when we look to the side, it almost looks like it's just right behind the figure, but obviously we can see that's not the case. Jumping to the front of the figure again, I really like this arm pose. It does give the sense that Godzilla is walking. It looks very grabby. And of course the leg pose too feels like he is either about to take a step or just took a step. So there is a good sense of motion, I think, that's present in the overall sculpt itself. Even if it isn't super dynamic, it does look really good. And here's a closer shot of what one of the feet will look like. Again, the toenails look exceptional. The paint job is very crisp, and you can even see little bits of what looks like supposed to be dirt in between the toes themselves. So the attention to detail is fantastic. And we'll quickly jump over to the back of Godzilla and look at these dorsal plates. Of course, they're your standard Godzilla dorsals, but they look fantastic. This particular shot, though, I feel like, aside from just the dorsals themselves, really nicely accentuates the crisp level of detail that's on this figure. We have that great shot of light that's hitting the back of Godzilla here, and then we have some shadow toward the front of the figure, but we do have some highlights on the chest and stomach that really give a good sense of the way light can accentuate this sculpt. So I guess part of the appeal for me with hyper-realistic figures is the ability to play with lighting on these things, especially if you do videography or photography. You can create some really dramatic imagery. Now I did put together some side-by-side images of this figure next to the X plus 30cm Yuji Sakai Godzilla 84. This is just to get a good sense of what these two look like, not really to say one is better than the other. That's not the point of what I'm showing this comparison for. It's more so just to show in terms of realistic or hyper-realistic figures of this particular design on the market, what something else looks like comparably. Now, of course, these are two different scales, so we have to keep that in mind as well. But based on these images, it does look like they both pulled from the same scene from the movie. The overall pose looks practically identical to me as far as I can tell. Again, I'm not an expert on this design or the movie itself, so correct me if I'm wrong, but they both look great in their own way. And before I wrap it up, I just want to take a moment to appreciate these two particular promotional images directly from Spiral Studio for this figure. These look so cool. I do always appreciate the photography that's used in selling these items from any company. It's always interesting to me. So anyway, what are my overall thoughts? I will say this. The Godzilla 84 design has never been a favorite of mine. I've always liked it, but this particular figure really makes me love the design and has really sold me on getting this figure. Unfortunately, however, I am limited on space and budget, so this does not seem like it's going to be feasible for me. I feel like I will regret this down the line because I know this is going to be hard to find considering how limited it is. And just going based off of these photos we looked at, the sculpt is so impressive, and it's a great representation of this particular design in figure format. But, as always, I am curious to know what you guys think. How do you feel about this particular figure? Have you already pre-ordered it? Will you be getting it? Comment your thoughts down below. Anyway, if you're new to the channel and you like the content, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and taking a look at my other Godzilla figure content on the channel as well. Lastly, thank you for watching, and have a good one.